Hi! In this lesson, we are going to introduce the data structure called objects. Imagine we have a phone contact list like this. In order to find the desired number to call, you would look up the associated name, and that will point you to the right number. We say that the name is the key, helping us get to the value we desired. Likewise, a dictionary has a similar setup. The key to finding the definition you're interested in is to find the associated word. What if we wanted to create a contact list or dictionary in JavaScript? Individual variables wouldn't work because we'd need too many, and there is not an easy way to search variable names within a program. Arrays also wouldn't work because while we could store all the numbers in one place, we don't have any way to identify which number belongs to which contact. Unless, of course, we memorize that index 1 was mom, and 2 was brother, and 32 was that one person you met at volleyball last weekend. So what do we use? Well, introducing objects. An object is a data structure that can hold information in a series of key value pairs, like a name and a phone number, or a word and a definition. Here is a visualization of an object, where each key is associated with a single value. There can be any number of these key value pairings, but each key name needs to be unique. We'll be able to add these pairings to an object and use the keys to access the values and even change them. So looking back at a contacts object, we'll use the names as the keys and their associated numbers as the values. And our dictionary object will use words as the keys and their definitions as the values associated with them. There are a few ways to create an object in JavaScript, but let's start by declaring an empty one and then adding key value pairs to it. Similar to other data structures like arrays, we start with a variable name followed by an equal sign. To make an empty object, we add open and closed curly brackets, not to be confused with creating an empty array, which uses open and closed square brackets. There are two ways to add key value pairs to this object: bracket notation and dot notation. For bracket notation, you write the object name, square brackets with the key name inside, and then equals the value. This notation will always work regardless of what's used for the key. Dot notation works the same way, but uses a dot between the object name and the key name. As you'll see, the syntax is a little simpler with dot notation, but you are not able to use it with multiple word keys or variables as keys. Let's take a look at our phone contacts example again and start adding the contacts as key value pairs with these two notations. We'll start by creating the empty object called contacts. Let's add our first contact, Albert. With bracket notation, we'd write contacts, square brackets, Albert in quotes, equal sign, and his number in quotes. Pretty easy. That key value pair of Albert as the key and his number as the value is now in the contacts object. We can do the same with dot notation. We'd write contacts dot Albert, no quotes, equals his phone number in quotes. This does the same thing as the bracket notation, but only requires the dot instead of the brackets and quotes. Now let's add some more contacts. Here we add Carl and his number with bracket notation, or alternatively with dot notation. And now Georgia May with bracket notation, but we cannot add her via dot notation because her name has two words. At this point, the contact object looks like this. We can now use the keys with bracket and dot notation to access their associated values. Here's our program so far. Now let's print out their numbers. If we write the following console print statements and run the program, we'll get each of their numbers. So easy. Notice that we can interchangeably use bracket and dot notation in adding and accessing key value pairs, except when the key is multiple words, like Georgia May, or if the key is stored in a variable. Objects are extremely powerful data structures that allow us programmers to store information in unique, customizable ways. Let's jump into the editor to see this in action. Let's start by creating our empty contacts objects with the open and closed curly brackets. And then let's add a few numbers to the contacts object using both notations. So to start, we'll add Zach using bracket notation. And then we'll add Priscilla, also using bracket notation. And so we're using their names as the keys and their phone numbers as the values associated with them. And then we'll add Jeremy using dot notation. And now let's print out Priscilla's number. And we'll use dot notation to access the value, the number associated with her name, the key. And now let's print out Jeremy's number. And this time we'll use bracket notation using his name in quotes to refer to the key in order to access his number, the value. And we'll print that out. And finally, we can also use a variable to store the name, which we'll use as the key. And to access the value, we need to use bracket notation because the key is kept within a variable. So it's pretty easy to use bracket and dot notation in order to store and access values that are within an object.